When determining the count of needlework fabrics, it's good to use a metal ruler and sturdy pins. For my demo, I'm using clover quilting pins, which are long with glass heads and they're easy to hold. You could certainly use a tapestry needle as well. This is mono canvas, so you just need your ruler and pins. What you want to do is place one pin in the canvas, measure an inch, and then put the other pin in. Because needlepoint canvas is very stiff, you will need to bend it, as I show here, to be able to get the pin in both sides. Once you've done that, you want to measure and double check what your measurement is correct. And then I'm going to use a third pin to actually do the counting. I place the pin in each of the holes as I go so I don't lose track. This particular canvas counts out to 18 mesh. If you want to use pins, you can mark your canvas with a writing pen. A fine tip permanent marker such as a Pigma pen or a water erasable pen made by Bowen or any of the other companies is good as well. I use a really fine tip because that way I don't end up with too much ink on my canvas. Do this near the edge of the fabric or the canvas because you want it in the margin. Start drawing a line. Before you get very far, place a ruler on the fabric and draw the rest of the line in until you've reached an inch. You want to draw a starting mark and an ending mark. I just do it from side to side so that I know where the beginning and the end is. And then I can use a counting pin to actually do the measurement later. Now in this case I'm using the water erasable pen since I already have an inch in the fabric. I just do the starting and ending marks and draw the line in between. I've checked it on the first pass, so it's good. So now all I need to do is use my counting pin, again sticking it in the holes so that I make sure I don't lose track. And as this is the same fabric we were counting before, it's going to count out to 18 mesh. For Aida and silk gauze, just use the pins measured an inch apart. For denser fabrics, you need to be able to actually do something like put sewing thread in it and base lines. It's much easier to count. So anything above 40 if you're doing it that way. I use sewing thread and I'm going to do it over 2 threads and under 2 threads. I start with a knot on the back, come to the front, and do over 2, under 2 until I've reached an inch. So I'm going to double check, and because I'm not quite at an inch, I need a few more stitches in there. You can start and end with a pin, but I find it easier just to do it as I go. So I'm going to do a couple of more stitches in here until I get to the inch. I'll double check the measurement, and in this case you'll discover, as I did when I did this for the demo, that I had gone 1 stitch too far, so I have 2 extra threads in my basting line. All I'm going to do is take the thread out from the back, then that will give me the place I need to start from when I turn the corner. So now that I've double checked it and I'm at exactly an inch, I can turn the corner. You want to measure both directions because the measurement for the warp and the weft may be different. Now that I've turned the corner, I'm going to do the same thing, over 2, under 2, until I get to an inch. It doesn't take that long to do this, and it's well worth the effort. Now that I've stitched close to an inch, I remeasure. And you'll notice that in this case, rather than having overshot it by 2 threads, as I did on the top, I've overshot it by 1. Not all fabrics are even in terms of numbers. They might be 53, they might be 47, they might be 39. So you want to make sure that your measurement is accurate to a single thread. So now I've backed out that 1. I have my 1 extra one there, and I've double checked that it actually measures an inch. Now that I've finished my basting lines, I've finished checking to make sure that I'm exactly at an inch. I can use my counting pin to count how many stitches there are based on my basting line. Because I'm doing it over 2, under 2, it makes it much easier to actually do the measurement and do the counting versus sticking pins in a fairly dense fabric. I find I make less errors if I do this. In fact, I almost make no errors if I do this than if I'm trying to count it freehand with just sticking pins in it. Once I finish the counting, I'm going to actually write this on the fabric so that I have a record of it. This is 41 warp, and 46 weft. Warp is the vertical, the straight grain, the selvage. Weft is the cross grain. Fabrics are not always going to be even warp and weft, so you might need to change the orientation of your linen. This is true for most linens above 40 count. This is 3 different mill runs of Kingston, which is sold as 55 or 56 count. As you can see, all 3 of them are different. I usually mark the selvage if I don't have it visible so that I know which direction it is. This is a newer mill run. It's now running 50 by 55, so you want to be sure to count this so that you can change your margins or change the orientation of your linen. These are some other 46 counts that I've measured the same way. I just stuck little pieces of paper on there because I was doing photographs for a friend of mine. This is Legacy 53 count, and this is Legacy 38 count corn tassel. It is an even weave. I hope that this helps you with being able to determine what your fabric is. Be sure to orient it the right direction and set your margins. Happy stitching!